Breaking news as FIFA considers moving upcoming World Cup matches due to safety concerns in several major American cities. The announcement has caused a significant stir.
American officials are calling several cities unsafe for the upcoming World Cup and are considering moving matches. This has caused a significant...
What Trump just said about the 2026 World Cup might be the most shocking political move you'll hear this year. And trust me, this isn't just about football anymore. Picture this. September 2025. A press conference in Washington, D.C. Cameras flashing. Donald Trump steps up to the microphone with that familiar, confident smile and drops a bombshell that sent shockwaves across every continent. If I see a place that isn't safe, we'll move the match somewhere else. 9 words. That's all it took. 9 words to ignite a global crisis that's still burning today. You're probably thinking, wait, can he actually do that? Well, that's exactly what FIFA asked themselves. And what happened next? It gets way more intense than you'd imagine. Because here's what most people don't know. Behind every World Cup match, there are billions of dollars in sponsorship deals, broadcasting rights locked in for years, stadium construction projects that employ thousands of workers, and insurance contracts so complex they take months to negotiate. When Trump suggested moving matches, he wasn't just making a casual suggestion. He was threatening to unravel a financial web that took nearly a decade to build. But the real shock came from FIFA's response. And this is where things get absolutely wild. Victor Montagliani, FIFA's vice president, gathered the media just days after Trump's statement. The room went silent. Everyone expected a diplomatic response, maybe some carefully worded political dance. Instead, Montagliani looked straight into the cameras and said something that stunned everyone watching. Football is bigger than any country, bigger than any government or slogan. Then he paused, let that sink in, and added the line that made headlines around the world. Presidents come and go, but the World Cup goes on. Can you imagine? A direct challenge to one of the most powerful political figures on the planet. But here's what makes this even more fascinating. Montagliani wasn't bluffing. See, what Trump didn't count on was FIFA's independence. This isn't some small sports organization that bends to political pressure. FIFA operates across 211 member nations. They've dealt with dictators, royal families, and every type of government you can imagine. And they've always maintained one sacred rule. No political leader, no matter how powerful, interferes with their operations. But let's rewind for a second. How did we even get here? Back in 2018, when the United States, Canada, and Mexico won the joint bid to host the 2026 World Cup, it was celebrated as a symbol of unity. 3 nations coming together for the first time in history to host a single tournament. Trump himself, then the sitting president, signed a formal commitment to FIFA. He promised that players, fans, and officials from every country would be welcomed with respect and fairness. The world breathed a sigh of relief. A modern democratic America with world-class infrastructure seemed like the perfect host. Fast forward 7 years, and that promise feels like it came from a different universe. The same man who represented cooperation was now casting shadows of doubt over the entire tournament. And here's where it gets really concerning. International media outlets started picking up on patterns. The BBC reported over 500 mass shootings in the United States within a single year. Reuters documented large-scale protests in major cities. Al Jazeera ran stories about political division, reaching levels not seen in decades. The global perception of the United States as a secure and organized nation was crumbling fast. For FIFA, this wasn't just about bad press. This was about logistics turning into nightmares. Think about this. In Russia 2018 and Qatar 2022, fans could enter the country with just a ticket and a passport. Simple, easy, welcoming. But in the United States, you need visa interviews that can take months to schedule, financial documentation proving you can afford your trip, background checks that dig into your entire history. One journalist summed it up perfectly when he said, in Russia, all you need is a ticket and a passport. In the US, you need time, money, and a miracle. That's not an exaggeration. That's the reality millions of international fans are facing right now. And while the United States tangled itself in controversy after controversy, something unexpected started happening. Canada and Mexico began quietly stepping into the spotlight. They weren't making bold statements or political threats. They were just working efficiently, professionally, getting things done. Sponsors noticed. Investors noticed. FIFA definitely noticed. reports started circulating that major sponsors were redirecting investments toward Canadian and Mexican venues, citing fewer risks and smoother organization. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. In a tournament meant to represent unity, the balance of credibility was tilting away from the United States. But Trump wasn't done. Not even close. In early 2025, during another press conference alongside Argentina's president, Javier Milei, Trump made another explosive statement. This time, he targeted specific cities: Boston, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia. He called them unsafe, claimed some were taken over by unrest, and suggested he might pressure FIFA to pull matches from these locations entirely. Boston was scheduled to host matches at Gillette Stadium. Los Angeles was preparing for both World Cup matches and the 2028 Olympics. These weren't small markets. These were billion-dollar venues that had invested years of planning and resources into preparing for the world's biggest sporting events. The mayors of these cities fired back immediately. Boston's Mayor Michelle Wu called Trump's comments irresponsible and dangerous. She pointed out that his so-called evidence of unrest was based on isolated incidents of street takeovers, late-night gatherings where people perform car stunts, not political violence, not terrorism, car stunts. But Trump doubled down. He specifically called out Mayor Wu as radical left, linking her to what he described as failed urban leadership. Then he said something that sent chills through the sports community. If someone is doing a bad job and there are unsafe conditions, I would call Gianni Infantino, the head of FIFA, and say, let's move it to another location. There it was, the direct threat. And it raised the question everyone was afraid to ask. Does Trump actually have that kind of influence over Infantino? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Trump and Infantino have a relationship. They've met multiple times. They've exchanged compliments publicly. And Infantino has been notably silent during Trump's most controversial statements about the World Cup. That silence speaks volumes. FIFA publicly maintains that all 16 host cities across the United States, Canada, and Mexico are secure and ready. Internal reports show no logistical or safety issues that would justify relocations. But behind closed doors, contingency plans are being discussed, just in case. And this is where the story takes a turn that affects every single person watching this video. Because this isn't just about football anymore. This is about what happens when politics invade spaces that used to be sacred. The World Cup has always represented something pure, a moment where countries put aside their differences for the love of the game. But that spirit feels threatened now. Meanwhile, the International Olympic Committee had to issue a rare joint statement after Trump suggested Los Angeles might lose the 2028 Olympics if he deemed it unsafe. The IOC emphasized their full confidence in Los Angeles, noting unified support from the president, California's governor, and the city's mayor. But the fact that they had to make that statement at all shows how fragile the situation has become. Trump later expanded his criticism to Seattle and San Francisco, describing them as cities run by radical left lunatics. 6 games are scheduled for Seattle's Lumen Field, another 6 for Levi's Stadium near San Francisco. Both cities immediately pushed back, defending their safety records and questioning Trump's motives. But here's what's really happening beneath the surface. This isn't actually about safety. This is about control. About sending a message that America, under Trump's leadership, won't bow to international organizations. That the United States makes the rules, even when it comes to global events. FIFA knows this. The world knows this. And that's exactly why Montagliani's response was so powerful. By stating that football will outlast any regime, he wasn't just defending FIFA's independence. He was defending the idea that some things in this world are bigger than politics, bigger than power, bigger than any one person's agenda. The question now is, what happens next? Will Trump continue to pressure FIFA? Will Infantino cave to political influence? Will the 2026 World Cup become the first tournament in history where matches get moved due to political threats rather than actual safety concerns? And here's the part that should worry you. If Trump succeeds in influencing FIFA's decisions, it sets a precedent. Other countries will see that political pressure works. Future World Cups could become bargaining chips in international relations. The purity of the sport could be permanently compromised. But there's another possibility, one that's quietly gaining momentum. Canada and Mexico aren't just backup plans anymore. They're proving they can handle the pressure. They're showing the world that professionalism, organization, and respect for international cooperation still matter. And if the United States continues down this path of controversy and uncertainty, don't be surprised if you see more matches shifted north and south of the border, not because of safety concerns, but because of trust, or the lack of it. The 2026 World Cup was supposed to be America's moment to shine, a chance to show the world that despite internal divisions, the United States could still host the planet's biggest celebration of sport. Instead, it's becoming a case study in how political rhetoric can undermine years of careful planning and international goodwill. Trump's statements have done more than create controversy. They've raised fundamental questions about America's reliability as a global partner, about whether political agendas will always take priority over international cooperation, about what happens when the world's trust in a superpower starts to crack, and the clock is ticking. June 2026 isn't that far away. Decisions need to be made. Investments need to be finalized. Fans need to book flights and hotels. But with every new Trump statement, every new threat, every new controversy, the uncertainty grows. FIFA is in an impossible position. They can't openly challenge a sitting U.S. president without risking the entire tournament. But they also can't appear weak or politically influenced without losing credibility with their two 11-member nations. So they're walking a tightrope, making careful statements that sound diplomatic but carry hidden warnings, preparing contingencies while publicly expressing confidence, watching, waiting, hoping the political storm passes before it causes irreversible damage. But here's what you need to understand. This story is far from over. Trump's influence, FIFA's independence, Canada and Mexico's rising prominence, and America's fading reliability are all converging into something unprecedented. The 2026 World Cup might not just be remembered for the football. It might be remembered as the tournament that changed how the world views the United States. What do you think? Will Trump back down? Will FIFA stand firm? Or are we watching the beginning of something much bigger than a sporting event? Tell us in the comments below.
If you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos.